You're listening to the God Life Culture Podcast, where faith
and what's trending
collide.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. This is Eddie.
What's up, everyone? This is Miguel, and we are so excited that you are tuned in for another episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. If this is your first time listening, we want to say welcome to the God Life Culture Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's conversation and that you come back, right, for next week and go back and check all of our previous episodes. If you are not subscribed, now is the time to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. And if you are a returning listener, welcome back, and thank you for riding with us and for listening to the God Life Culture Podcast.
Yes.
These last few weeks, we have been showing the podcast for our family conference, and we did that. We had the Q&A session, we had the interview, and then last week's episode, we sat back and reflected on it, and it was really cool. The feedback we got and all the people that, were reposting and sharing and, enjoying those conversations, so that was really cool. But today, we're wrapping that up, right? And we are talking about something completely different today.
Listen, it is spring break. It is a time of year where all the teachers get their last break before the end of the school year.
Yeah.
The kids get their last break. Students, college people, everybody's traveling to different states, Miami, Tennessee, and all of this stuff. So if you're currently on a road trip listening to us, hey, think of us.
Drive safe.
I'm not hating at all here in Long Island. No,
not at all.
But it is a great, this is the time of year where things start to change. The weather starts to get a little warmer, and it's good. It starts giving for those of us that live in states that go through the four seasons. Yeah. Winter's on its way out. Spring is here, which means we're that much closer to summer, and that's when all the outside activities really begin to bloom. So just really excited. Really excited for that. New season, a lot of people at the end of the year new year, new me, new season, better me.
Yeah. And we've always say, you don't have to wait for a new year to start anything, right? To do anything. You can change your perspective, change your attitude, and start something new even now.
True. Absolutely. One of the things that we've spoken about a lot is how we both teach Sunday school or Bible study, in our church. And, in our last class, we've been going through, a lot of different, we started at Genesis. We're currently in 1 Samuel. And one of my ways that I really like to teach and to really ground ourselves to be able to make the information that we're learning applicable and relevant for us is to ask a lot of questions. Yeah. I'm always asking questions. I'm always asking about perspective. I'm always asking about understanding, or I'm always asking questions that are going to open up the conversation about what we're about to get into. And one of the questions that I posed for the class is a conversation that is actually a good little brain teaser, just because it allows you to really center yourself to figure out, when you do a certain thing, is it, where is that coming from? And one of those things is that a lot of us really look at people or look at scenarios or situations and have an opinion on it. And the question that I had posed, which is, what is the difference between judging versus comparing and contrasting when you see something or someone? Yeah. What do you think?
I think judging, when we judge, we compare and contrast.
All right, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you.
I think that it's all in how it's being done, right? The heart behind it and the motive behind it. I think the word judge has come to have such a negative connotation, right? That we just look at that word and immediately it's associated with just negativity, right? We don't want to be judged. We always say no one can judge me, or I don't like to judge, right? But in reality, we all do it, right? In reality, we all have thoughts, we all have opinions, we all have ideas, and sometimes we share those ideas without people asking us, right? We give our advice, we give our thoughts and our 2 cents about certain things, and other times we reserve those things, right? But it's going on in our heads. We're thinking about and comparing and contrasting, whether it's, you know, family backgrounds, right? You know, your background, you know, how you were brought up. You see another family that maybe is brought up differently, and you just see how maybe it's not working in that scenario. I think of like children, right? And parenting. I feel like a lot of people, they have their ways of parenting. Then they see other kids and they have a lot to say about their parenting style and, you know, those parents' style when it comes to their kids. And a lot of times it could be negatively done, right? Where you are, you know, passing judgment and criticizing in your head and saying, I can't believe she would let her kid do that, or I can't believe he speaks to his kids like that. And, you know, it's all negative emotions. But then in other moments, it could be, man, I should implement that. Or I should try that. I don't do that. I do this. And sometimes it doesn't work. I see this working really well. I think I should try it. Or even, hey, I see this. It seems like it's not working. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So I think that it's all in the motive and the heart behind what you're saying and what you're thinking and how you express those things. Because a lot of times people don't need to know that you're judging them. People don't need to know that you're comparing their situation and thinking about how you would raise your kid, or how, you know, you would go on that family vacation, or how you would do things if you were in their shoes. Like, sometimes people don't need to know all that information. You know what I mean? And I think that that also has a lot to do with it, the delivery, right? And how we execute when we judge, right? Or when we compare and contrast people. So again, I think they're the same. I just think that it really depends on your heart behind it and how you go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that it's definitely, you know, intentionality and heart, because it's something that everyone does. You do multiple times a day, if not a lot of times a day, you know, whether it is you're at work and, you know, there's a work situation that needs to be rectified and you're looking at it, you know, you can look at it from the perspective of Susan from accounting did that. She's always a mess. It's always a this, it's always a that. I can't believe it. Like, that's judging negative. Versus Susan from accounting did that. You know what? I would have maybe done a little bit different. Or, you know what? That's really cool, the way that happened. And then, you know, and a lot of times it's not something you're expressing to people. It's all about a situation in the heart. You know, I think that most of the time when we're judging or comparing and contrasting others or things, it's not something that we're sharing with people. It's something that we're internalizing and having that internal dialogue with yourself. And then if you have, you know, someone that you have a close relationship with, or a friend or a spouse, then you'll be like, oh, yo, did you see X, Y, and Z? And then that's when either you guys enter into a conversation of judging versus a conversation of comparing and contrasting. I do think that there are scenarios that do merit you to express that to whoever it is, whatever the situation is that you are hopefully comparing and contrasting and not judging. And I think that when you have those conversations with individuals about maybe giving tidbits or noticing something and trying to like help them out or give them your opinion on something, it can come off as judging, especially if it's starting off a little negative. So like, for example, we put together something for Easter Sunday. It's a group of us, 7 of us, and I had to choreograph the situation, and not have to, I chose to. It was an honor. It was a privilege. And, you know, but I have to, when someone isn't doing something accordingly, you have to point it out to them. Yeah. And there are times that in order for them to get a better understanding of how it's done, they have to do it with someone who is actually doing it better. So there comes a moment where they do have to compare their actions and contrast it to what the other person is doing in order to get a better understanding of how the body movement should be, or how the stance should be, or how the positioning should be. And we see that sometimes when you're mentoring someone. If you're mentoring someone who it's their first year teaching, you're a teacher. You know, I believe you guys do this as well, where it's the first year teaching. You have somebody that sits in the classroom. They're there for the whole lesson, and then after they have a meeting and they compare notes. Isn't that something that teachers do?
Yeah, and I think again, those are opportunities and moments that provide growth, but there needs to be a level of confidence and security on that individual's, you know, end, right? Yeah. Where, you know, they need to be confident in what they're doing, right? And, you know, willing to be challenged. You know, when you look up what does it mean to feel judged, right? Just on Google, it says when people make you question your character, intelligence, beliefs, decisions, or preferences in a way that cause shame, and they make you feel judged in a negative way. Yeah. So that's the thing, right? I think it is healthy to be challenged. It is healthy to be pushed. It's healthy for you to want to grow. And a lot of times, in order for you to grow, people need to tell you what you're doing wrong, or tell you this is why it's not working, or maybe have you considered this? Immediately when we hear those words as humans, I think our defense systems go up, right? We get anxious, or we get nervous, or we get defensive, and we're very much like, thinking that person wants to take over, thinking that person thinks they're better, thinking that person knows it all, when in reality that person could really be trying to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I think because we may have negative experiences of people judging us, or negative experiences of people, trying to give us constructive criticism, and they don't do it correctly or the wisest, I think then we're so scarred where then we don't know how to receive constructive criticism. We don't know how to distinguish, right, and differentiate constructive criticism from actually someone negatively judging us, right? So I think it's very important that on both sides, right, if you are on the receiving end, that you make sure you are processing and hearing that person correctly. You're hearing their heart, you're hearing how they're telling you, and what's the goal at the end. Are they telling you this because they want you to be just as good, or they want you to, for whatever reason, they are trying to make you feel less than, so then you don't come across as the best or as great, you know what I mean? So you really have to be able to hear that other person and have that discernment to know they're trying to help me. Yeah. They're trying to help me grow. They're trying to challenge me. And in the moment, you have to overcome all those feelings, right? You have to overcome the feelings of they want my spot. They want my position. They're trying to be better. They know it all. You have to fight through that. Yeah. Now, are there times where there will be individuals that will be trying to do those things? Absolutely. You have to learn how to discern between those individuals that are actually trying to help you and those that are trying to pass these judgments to make you feel shame. Yeah. At the end, right, when you feel that judgment, I think, like that definition says, it makes you question who you are. It makes you question, am I doing this right? It makes you question, am I enough? And those questions at times are healthy to process and think about. But then, there comes a time where those thoughts and those questions actually stop us from moving forward and executing things that we're supposed to do.
Yeah, but I also think that's a challenge that as individuals, we need to be able to confront.
Yeah.
Because there are times where maybe you think you're doing enough, but you really aren't. Maybe you're giving a good 90. But in reality, you can give 100. In reality, you can actually break that and do 110, 150. And sometimes when people see that you have the ability to do more, give more, be more, and they bring it up to you, you allow your defense mechanism to self-sabotage. And to be like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm giving 100. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But when in reality, if you sat down to really think about it, you could maybe be doing more. Yeah. And when that happens, you need to be able to have the humility, but also the ability to be like, you know what? That person is right. It's true. You know what? I felt like I was giving enough, but now that I sit back and I evaluate and I think about it and I look at the situation, I could be doing a little bit more. So let me push forward and do that. On the flip side, I think that delivery, which is something that we've always spoken about, is important. Yeah. When you're trying to provide someone an observation, or you're trying to bring them into the realization that they can maybe do something a little bit different, you can be saying the best thing, but if you say it the wrong way, it's not going to be received. Yeah. So it's very important that if you're giving someone, if you're in a situation where you have to compare and contrast someone, or you have to give somebody feedback. So maybe you are a leader in a group, or you are a supervisor, you're a manager, or you're just a good friend that is seeing a situation happen and you feel compelled to give an observation, you have to lead with love. Yeah. And what that looks like is, hey, I know you're really trying hard, but I noticed that X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, I only say this out of love and because I really, I'm trying to, make sure you're giving 100% or make sure you're doing the best. It has to come with that little pick me up in the beginning to then lay in but you need to fix this.
Yeah. So how would you define that constructive criticism? How would you describe constructive criticism when, and how it's different than someone passing judgment, right? What do you think is the difference?
I think we said it before, the difference is the heart. So the person is coming from a place where they're intentionally trying to make you feel less than.
Yeah.
They're coming from a place where they're intentionally trying to make you feel bad. They're coming from a place where their words are not words of encouragement. And even if it's disguised, you can still feel it. Mm-hmm. You know, that thing of, you know, passive aggressiveness is something that you can feel. Now, you have to develop the filter to understand that just because someone is telling you something that's difficult to swallow does not mean it's coming from a place of judgment. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's really about understanding who is this person that's coming and is speaking to you. Is it a close friend? Is it someone you trust? Is it someone that you believe wants the best for you? So you start off with giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Depending on the words that they use, the tone of voice that they use, whether or not they're willing to have a conversation with you about it. Because sometimes people just want to give you their opinion and then deuces, like be out. It's like, no, come back over here. What did you mean by that? What does that look like for you? Like they need to be able to dialogue. If they're not willing to dialogue about the situation, then it's coming from a place of judgment. If they're not willing to understand your perspective on it, it's also coming from a place of judgment as well. You know, and I think that it's all these like little things, all these little flags, whether they're red or green, are the ones that really pinpoint to you if this is coming from someone who is judging you or if it's coming from someone who's giving you constructive criticism. Constructive criticism isn't always easy to swallow.
Yeah.
But if it's coming from a place of love, you got to let it marinate a little bit. But after that, it will settle well within you.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, anytime I'm in a position where I have to give constructive criticism to someone, or I'm in a, you know, space where someone is telling me, well, what'd you think? Or how, right? That's always a tough question to answer, right? When someone is telling you, you know, give me feedback. What'd you think? And you have a lot to say, right? And you know, it shows they're willing to ask, right? Because they want to know. Mm-hmm. But at times that's in like a door where it's like, you really want me to tell you? Like, are you ready? Like, can we, you know, have this conversation? The one thing that I try to do is always start with the positive and the strengths, right? So I think a part of constructive criticism is not only focusing on the weaknesses or on the negative, right? But starting off the conversation and letting them know this is what you did well. Yeah. This came out really good. This moment was really strong. Mm-hmm. At this time, you really showed that you knew what you were doing. You had the control. You had, right? Like, and you go through that list of this is what you did well. These are all the strengths. In that, there are some weaknesses or areas of improvement, right? Mm-hmm. So those things need to be addressed as well. But one thing that I think is super important when it comes to constructive criticism is not stopping at the weaknesses. Mm-hmm. Don't just point out what they did wrong. Don't just point out what didn't work. Don't just point out, you know, this is why this happened and this is why it fell flat and this is why it was not done, right? You need to offer a solution. Yeah. You need to offer some type of suggestion, some type of call to action, some type of, you know, tip that allows that other individual to see and hear what you said about what didn't work, but then leave that conversation, okay, I'm going to try this the next time. I think it's so easy, you know, delivering constructive criticism to just focus on the negative and focus on what went wrong and leaving it there. Yeah. Especially as a leader, I think sometimes that happens because you just get so frustrated. Right? You get frustrated and you want things to come out a certain way. You want it to be a certain way. It doesn't happen that way. So it's so easy to focus on the negative, how it didn't get done, how the job did not get done effectively and to the best of its potential. But you have to remember, right? If you want to grow people and if you really want to challenge people, you just don't give them the problem to solve for themselves at times. At times, when individuals try and put in the effort and it doesn't work, you as the leader should, right, step in and give them that constructive criticism, tell them what went wrong, but also tell them this is what you need to try next time, right? That shows on your end. I'm not only pointing out to you what you did wrong. I'm not only telling you the negatives. I'm also willing to help you in the process, right? So it's not just, don't just tell me what I did wrong. Tell me how to fix it. Mm-hmm. Tell me what I can do better. Tell me what I should try next time. That is constructive criticism.
Yeah, and things like that even apply in friendships and in relationships. You know, if you have a friend who feels like they're, you know, I haven't found my significant other, you know, you can't just go at them and be like, yeah, but you don't go nowhere. And just leave it there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has to be more like, yeah, you know, but you don't really go out a lot. You know, maybe let's plan a date. Not a date for us, but let's plan a day that we go out and we go do this. Let's go out to eat, or let's go to this event or this concert. You know, those are the pick-me-ups that you kind of try to do with stuff like that. If you have a friend or a family member who is struggling with parenting, you're not going to be like, oh, mira, tú tienes un muchacho malcriado, you don't know how to parent, you're a bad mom, you're a bad dad, or whatever. You can't do that. You can't do that type of stuff. I remember we had a situation a couple of years ago where someone felt like they were giving us like good, like a helpful constructive criticism, but they weren't because of their delivery of it. And it kind of came to a point where I was like, yeah, but you can't say that like that. And they're like, oh no, we're cool, you know what I mean. And it's like, no, you don't say things like that. Even when you're cool with people,
right.
There's a level of respect that you have to give people and individuals with stuff. So even when you're speaking to family members about certain things, you can point out a thing and then be like, hey, there's a book, or did you see this video, did you see this page on social media? Listen, social media could be used for so many things. Use it for that. They have all these self-help pages. They have all these pages on different things, financing. You have a friend that's always broke, but they make twice as much money as you do, but you don't understand why they're always broke. So guide them to a financial page or something that will like really help them out. Because a lot of times what people just need is clear guidance. Point them in the right direction. Something that you say may inspire them to be like, you know what? I don't really, what they said reminded me of something that I can apply, and then I'll do that. And that's what I think really the purpose for like comparing, contrasting situations is about. It's to create an opportunity for whoever is doing whatever to be better. Not necessarily your suggestion is the key component. Not necessarily your suggestion is the answer, but it may inspire something else. It may have a domino effect that leads that person down a train of thought that brings them to where they need to be at in order to be better or do better, whatever the situation is. And in reverse, it may work for you, where you're comparing a situation and comparing it to your situation. You're like, you know what? That was a really good idea. I don't have the resources to do it that way, but I'm going to flip it and I'm going to do it this way so that it's beneficial to me.
Yeah. And I think something you said that's so essential is the idea that some people just need guidance, right? Yeah. Some people have great ideas. Some people have great thoughts and great goals and things that they want to accomplish. They don't know how to accomplish it. They don't know how to get there, right? And I think that, a lot of times we can... when we have, let's say, certain types of experiences or a certain background where we know that we can help, or we know that we, have strategies or tips and tools, at times individuals who fit those categories can become very stingy with those things, right? Like they don't want to help, they don't want to guide, but then every time that individual messes up or makes that mistake, right, they have something to say. So it's also keeping in mind that maybe you're the person that needs to step in to help that individual. Maybe you're the one that needs to step in and give them some suggestions and a few pointers. You have to be okay with that. You have to be willing to put your pride to the side, to know this individual is doing something very similar to what I'm doing. I know I have the tools and resources. I've done this for 5, 10, 15 years. I know how to jumpstart this. I know how to kickstart this. You know what? I'm gonna talk to them. Right? You need to have a level of confidence to be able to do that. In turn, the individual that is receiving that needs to have the confidence and security of them in themselves to not feel threatened, right? To not feel threatened by someone else trying to help them or trying to give them pointers or give them suggestions. So this is where, again, this is something that it's not just a one-sided situation, right? When we talk about judgments or criticisms and all of that, right? It's both the deliverer and the person receiving these words that needs to be able to process everything accordingly and everything appropriately. You know what I mean? Not everyone is out to get you. Not everyone is out to speak negatively about you. Not everyone, right, is there to criticize the way you're parenting, the way your marriage is, the way you talk to your kids, the way you do your job. Not everyone honestly cares how you do all of those things. But I think immediately when someone comes to just give us that pointer, give us that suggestion, unfortunately, because of past situations, our defenses go up and we get defensive, and that's not, that puts people off. You know what I mean? That we're actually, a good resource for you and can actually help you. That may burn that bridge where then they're not going to do that anymore.
No, and I think that, you were describing an individual who has the answers or resources or whatever and doesn't do that. That person is called a gatekeeper. This is someone who can literally help whoever, a person or a group of people, enter into an opportunity or get access to certain resources that would help them, and they choose not to. And I think that is something that is not what we're supposed to be doing. When we are supposed to be people who, love one another, support one another, encourage one another. If you have the answer, the solution, or the resources to something, the fact that you would sit back and watch them struggle, that's not nice. That's not good. And those are things that God does not appreciate, because that does not demonstrate his character. That does not demonstrate who he is and how he operates. So when you do things like that, you can't expect then for God's, seal of approval to be upon what you're doing. It's kind of like, that's not how we operate. There are times that maybe you have to be selective, with certain resources that you like. It's like, if you have a connection with a very, person who is creating an opportunity for something, let's say a well-paying job that, that's going to give you $200,000 a year, and you have a friend who's highly irresponsible, right, who doesn't even show up on time to anything, who is quitting jobs every 3 weeks and all that stuff or whatever, is that a friend that you're going to give that opportunity to? Maybe not. That's not gatekeeping. That's you seeing that, this is a person who is not responsible. This isn't a bridge that I want to burn by suggesting someone who I know is going to flake on them 2 weeks from now. That is different. But seeing someone who maybe lost a job, who has all the qualifications, who is responsible, but you're like, I don't know. I'd rather wait for my other friend or something like that. That is gatekeeping. You are holding back a resource, an opportunity for someone who can benefit from it, who is someone that can use that, but because you're just being stingy and you're like, I don't know, because then they'll be making more money than I am, and I don't know how I feel about that. That's not the right way to operate in life.
No. Absolutely not. I mean, in essence, I think, what we can take away from this conversation is understanding that in order to grow and in order to reach new heights and reach our goals at times, you can't avoid it. Someone is going to have to tell you what you're doing wrong. Someone is going to have to tell you how you can do better. Someone is going to have to tell you, you're trying this, you've been trying for months, you've been trying for years, it's not working, you need to take this approach. You need to try something different. Our pride, our egos cannot get hurt in that process, right? If we truly want to grow and be challenged, we need to learn to accept constructive criticism. We need to learn how to discern between someone telling us positive advice because they want to see us grow and succeed, and someone who is trying to be jealous and envious, and someone who is trying to see us fail because they themselves, right, may feel threatened, or they themselves may feel like, for whatever reason, their light will dim. Right. Yes. In that sense, you can definitely help somebody out. You can definitely help someone who is doing the same thing as you and give them those ideas and give them those suggestions. And you can both be great. You can both be effective. You can both be successful. Right. And especially when it comes in ministry, I think that a lot of times, I've seen it. Right. There are people where they don't want to share their resources. They don't want to share where they got their equipment from, as if you can't Google it, right? They don't want to share, right, the door or the opportunity that they got that really launched them out there or like put them out there. They don't want to share their platform. If they have a certain following, they may not want to do that, right? Because they could feel like, then everyone is going to look at them as the preacher, or look at them as the teacher, look at them as that is the worshiper that's in right now. No, there's room for everybody, Absolutely. And I think that a lot of times the enemy will use that to make us feel like we need to keep our resources to ourselves. We need to keep everything to ourselves. We're not letting anybody know what we do, how we do it, who blesses us or whatever, out of fear that they're going to steal it all away, right? They're going to take it all and they're going to leave us with nothing, or that they're going to take it all and be better than us. And in essence, if you are a leader and if you are a mentor to someone, isn't the goal, right, for them to be better than you, for them to not have to maybe go through certain experiences, right? I went through this experience because I didn't obey, I didn't listen, I should have done this and I didn't, right? So I'm telling you because I don't want you to make those mistakes. So I want you to be sure not to do that, right? Isn't that the goal? Or is it when you hear someone telling you something that you did and it didn't work and it's a big mistake and you know how that's going to end because you went through that same path, do you just sit there and tell them, oh, they'll learn? right? Or do you offer that advice and say, listen, I was in the similar situation as you. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm going to tell you what happened to me. And a lot of times, right, everyone's story and journey is different, but we can learn from those individuals who have gone through things, right? Yeah. And who have gone through experiences similar to ours. So I think on both ends, we have to be willing to listen. We have to be willing to hear the heart behind what's being said, right? And we have to be willing at the end of the day to be challenged and to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, at the end of the day, these type of conversations are conversations that we have for people to check themselves.
Yeah.
Look, I almost knocked myself out. Check yourself and your heart and your intention, whether or not you're someone that just sits back and judges everyone. You shouldn't be doing that. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you're someone who sees things and have resources and have suggestions that could help somebody, then encourage yourself. Go ahead and do that. Lead with love, lead with positivity, and you'll be able to help somebody grow. And if they surpass you, if they're better than you, and whatever skill or profession it is that they do that you coincidentally do as well, amen. Good. That's a good thing. They'll always be able to look back and be like, I got to this place because of what you did. Yeah. I got to this place because of that suggestion, because of the way that you helped me, because the way that you guided me. And I thank you for that. Listen, that's awesome.
And you have to be okay with the people that you do that for that don't do that.
True.
That don't tell you thank you, right? I mean, that's even right. That's even biblical, right? We see that Jesus would heal people and whatever, and one came back. You know what I mean? You have to also know that not everyone will acknowledge that, right, and let you know. But that doesn't change the fact that it's true.
Yes,
it doesn't change the fact that you did help them, right? And there will always be those individuals that will thank you, and when that happens, be grateful for that, right? Receive that gratitude and receive that moment. But know that ultimately God sees, right? And that God is aware of what you do, your work, your effort, how you help other people. And they may not acknowledge it here on earth. They may not give you the praise. They may not appreciate that, but God does.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we hope that this has been an encouraging conversation for you guys. As always, we ask you, listen, sit down, have these conversations with your group of friends, speak to them about, is there anything that you've been wanting to tell me that you think I can improve on, or things that I can do better in, or maybe you've had a suggestion that you maybe you didn't want to tell me, and start having these open dialogues with your group of people.
And be ready for the response.
Be ready for the response. But hopefully, it'll be delivered in a way that you'll be able to take it in and apply it accordingly.
Absolutely. So be sure to follow us on our social media pages at Facebook and on Instagram at God Life Culture Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on there. And every time we drop a new episode, every Monday, you will be notified, and you could check out our conversations, share it with others, and ultimately be encouraged and be blessed.
Yeah, so thank you once again for tuning into the latest episode of the God Life Culture Podcast. That's God Life Culture. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.